Stephen Kinney. Right, Dr. Stephen Kinney, actually.
Right.
That's right, I forgot about that. So, back to St. David's Episcopal Church. The year was around 2000. What were your remembrances of Strings Attached? You mentioned something about Easter and...
Well, it was more 2002, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, all I was saying earlier was that when you guys came in and the caliber of the music, it was special. And there was buzz in the air, and people were talking about it. And I was only there once a week, eavesdropping, but I could feel it in the bookstore, talking to Patricia Boyce, and she was selling tickets, and it's all anybody was talking about. And who is this Will Taylor dude?
Yeah.
And the fact that you were taking advantage of the context,
That's right.
the acoustics, and doing what you guys do, and being sensitive to making that work in that space, it was a home run. And I finally went to a couple of shows, and by the end of that, by the time it got going, it seemed like you guys had run its course, and it was over. And then your next show was at University Baptist. Was that after you left St. David's?
It was toward the end, but we still were at St. David's.
So when I heard you were going to do the White Album at University Baptist, I went out immediately and got some buds to come with me, and we got there as early as we could. I mean, I think we were an hour early, and we ended up on the last row in the choir balcony, and it was so packed.
That's right.
And the folks you had and the arrangements you produced enabled me to hear the White Album for the first time. Right. I mean, what I heard was jazz. I didn't know the White Album for most of us was like, that's the last collaboration, and but Beatles were in conflict, and some interesting tunes, but there was no coherence to it. Some loved it, some hated it.
Yeah.
But the way that Strings Attached interpreted it, I just heard jazz. And for me, I went back and listened to it, and it's been my favorite Beatles album.
Right.
Since you gave me that access.
Right. So that's one of the things that we really set out to do with Strings Attached, is reimagining the music of America of the last 40, 45, 50 years, bringing it to, playing it with jazz sensibility. Mm-hmm. The whole idea of jazz has always been, it's not a kind of music in itself, but a way of playing the music, playing music.
From
the bottom up, exactly. So I've always been like, well, then let's pick some music from, rather than the 20s and 30s and Tin Pan Alley, let's pick it from our recent past, the 60s, the 70s. Let's use that as the material for us to play with, the Play-Doh, in our little experimental workshop that we do. And they use the local musicians to come in. And I've always wanted to kind of take them out of their element. Okay, so all those artists, I want to get them scared. Here we are planning this Halloween show here. We're right now in this space. Let me just show everybody. Halloween. So, because there's something that comes out of being put on the spot, being scared, being spontaneous. And when you do that, when you bring consummate artists together, that's when the magic happens. That's the chemistry that happens. So people ask, well, what's so special about Strings Attached? That's one of the things, is the collaboration. Well,
and you could feel, I knew that you had arranged the music, but when you asked Matt the electrician to play what was it? Do you remember what he played?
It was one of those White Albums.
Whatever, whichever tune it was, it's like, oh my God, because each musician who knew the music were working with your arrangement, but each one interprets differently.
I know.
And so it's the ultimate front porch idea for me.
Oh, that's true.
And I would just say it's, I don't want to get into Trinitarian theology, but
from your standpoint, that's what you're coming from.
It's real community where you celebrate each voice, but together. and you're not.
Yeah.
And musically,
Yeah.
you pulled that off. I
Right.
mean, I think it was beautiful.
It was a night to remember, a historical night. Jody Denberg.
It was messy
yeah.
too.
It was messy, yeah.
Because it was late and things
Right.
didn't work and it was last minute. But that was all part of creating that safe space in which to be uncomfortable.
Nice.
And so that edginess was palpable.
Okay, so you were up in the balcony area,
Yeah.
and you could look at the people that were experiencing it.
Yeah.
I'm always, when I'm in a crowd, I'm always looking to see how people, expressions on their face, how they're receiving it. Do you remember any of that? Do you remember?
Well,
Did people
I mean,
seem?
I just knew that it was a happening.
Right.
And it was special. And again, it's music that at least I grew up with. I think I was in middle school when the White Album came out.
Right.
But like I said, it's as if I'm hearing it for the first time.
That's nice.
And I'm just so grateful that someone was able to take that and not be afraid of it. You know, to
Right.
tackle the Beatles and not feel compelled to reproduce it,
Right.
but to innovate and to accent what's already there that Lennon or McCartney may have felt, but then to let that come to the surface.
Yep.
It's
That's right.
Pretty cool.
Right. So music isn't a fixed art. It's an activity.
It's a dialogue.
It's a dialogue. Absolutely. I appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about, patronism. And I've partnered with John Pointer, actually for the last 5-6 years with his project. And the idea, it's not a new idea, but bringing it to this current century with the internet, and that everyone can be a patron. I mean, in the past, it was wealthy patrons, wealthy aristocrats, that had the money to employ the Beethovens, the Mozarts, and commit a certain amount of money or support so that they could not have to worry about, where their next meal was going to come from or how they were going to live. So why did these people in the 18th century, 19th century do that? And so we're bringing that idea forward to the present. And, why would you want to do that?
In the age of Spotify and iTunes, and the musician can no longer make dough from the sale of their music as you used to do.
Right.
So what's going to happen?
Right.
Each musician has to become his or her own business person, an entrepreneur, and more time has to be devoted to making a living, because you're not making a living from selling your work.
That's right.
Because people can access it for free.
Exactly.
So, we need, as a culture, to own the fact that we've got to be patrons of the folks who are willing to take the risk and to do the hard work to create the music. And if we don't all step up and pay our fair share, and quit expecting, especially musicians in Austin, to play for free because they all need the exposure or whatever, and give a really living wage. If we all don't get that mindset and change the culture, then not only are we going to lose music in Austin, it's going to be just one big cliche.
That's right.
But it's a lose-lose. We're all going to lose. So patronism.com, as I understand it, gives all of us an opportunity to add a few bucks each month.
Right.
Pick your artist or